There I was, standing at the door of my own beach house in Malibu, watching my daughter-in-law, Brittany, throw her head back and laugh like she owned the place. Her whole family was spread out on my deck chairs, drinking from my expensive wine collection, while her kids splashed in my pool. When she saw me standing there with my suitcase, her face twisted into that ugly sneer I'd grown to hate. "What is this old parasite doing here?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "We have no place for you." I just smiled, because what Brittany didn't know was that I had just made one phone call that would change everything. One call that would turn her perfect little vacation into the worst nightmare of her entitled life. But before I continue, drop a comment below and let us know where in the world you're watching from. We love seeing how far our stories reach, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to help us reach that big 1,000 subscriber milestone. We're so close, and every single subscriber counts. It's completely free for you, but it means everything to this channel. Also, on the final screen, I've left a video and a playlist that I promise will surprise you. Seriously, don't miss them. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. Now, go ahead and hit that subscribe button to be part of the journey. My name is Dorothy Washington, and at 7 years old, I thought I had learned everything there was to know about family loyalty. Boy, was I wrong. It all started 3 months ago when my son Marcus brought home his new wife. Now, I want to be clear about something right from the start. I raised my son to be a good man, and he is. Marcus works as a doctor at Children's Hospital, saves lives every day, and has always been respectful to everyone he meets. So when he told me he was getting married to someone named Brittany Coleman, I was excited to welcome her into our family. The first red flag should have been when Marcus asked if Brittany and her 2 kids from her previous marriage could move into my house just for a few months while they looked for their own place. My house is big, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, and I live alone since my husband Robert passed away 5 years ago. So of course I said yes. Family helps family, right? Brittany moved in with her kids, Tyler and Madison, both around 10 years old. At first, things seemed okay. She was polite enough, said please and thank you, and the kids were mostly well-behaved. But then I started noticing small things, like how she would rearrange my furniture without asking, or how she threw away my old family photos because they made the place look dated. When I asked her about it, she just shrugged and said, "Oh, I thought you wouldn't mind. I'm just trying to make this place more modern for Marcus." Then there was the way she talked to me when Marcus wasn't around. Sweet as pie when my son was home, but the moment he left for work, her whole personality changed. She would roll her eyes when I asked simple questions, sigh loudly when I tried to help with dinner, and make comments about how old people just didn't understand how things worked nowadays. But I bit my tongue. I told myself she was just adjusting to living with her new mother-in-law. Moving in together is hard for everyone, right? The few months turned into 6 months, then 8 months, then a whole year. Every time I gently asked Marcus about their house hunting, he would look stressed and say they were still saving money for a down payment. Meanwhile, Brittany had quit her job as a real estate agent, claiming she needed to focus on the family and be there for the kids. What she was really doing was spending Marcus's doctor salary on designer handbags, expensive clothes, and fancy dinners with her friends. I watched my hardworking son get more and more tired, picking up extra shifts at the hospital to pay for Brittany's shopping habits while she lounged by my pool all day. The worst part was how she treated my house like it was hers. She would invite her friends over without asking me, use my good china for casual lunches, and even gave spare keys to her mother and sister so they could come and go as they pleased. When I tried to talk to her about setting some boundaries, she would get this innocent look on her face and say, "But Dorothy, I thought you wanted us to feel at home here." Things got really bad around month 14. I had been dealing with some health issues, nothing serious, just some high blood pressure and arthritis that made it hard to get around sometimes. My doctor said I needed to reduce stress and take things easy. So I asked Brittany if she could help out a little more around the house, maybe cook dinner a few nights a week, or help with the grocery shopping. You would have thought I asked her to climb Mount Everest. "I'm not your maid, Dorothy," she snapped at me. "I have my own family to take care of." Maybe it's time you thought about moving into one of those senior living places where people can actually take care of you properly. A senior living place. She wanted to put me in a nursing home so she could have my house to herself. I was so shocked I couldn't even respond. This was my home. The home Robert and I had bought 35 years ago when Marcus was just a baby. The home where we had raised our son, hosted countless family gatherings, and built a lifetime of memories. And she wanted me gone so she could play house. That night, I tried to talk to Marcus about what happened. But Brittany had gotten to him first. "Mom, Brittany told me what happened today," he said, looking uncomfortable. "She's just trying to help. Maybe she has a point about you needing more support as you get older." My own son, the boy I had raised, sacrificed for, loved unconditionally for 33 years. And he was taking her side. "Marcus," I said carefully, "this is my house. I'm not ready to leave it. And I don't think I should have to leave it, just because your wife finds it inconvenient to live with me." He got that look, the same look he used to get as a teenager when he was caught between me and his friends. "Mom, please, we're all just trying to make this work. Can't you try to be a little more flexible?" Flexible? I was supposed to be flexible about being kicked out of my own home. But it got worse. So much worse. Over the next few weeks, Brittany's behavior became more and more aggressive. She would accidentally throw away my mail. Claiming she thought it was junk, she rearranged the kitchen so I couldn't find anything. Then acted annoyed when I asked where she had moved my coffee filters. She started hosting loud parties that went until 2 in the morning. And when I asked her to keep it down, she would say, "Sorry, Dorothy, but we can't live like we're in a library just because you go to bed early." The final straw came on a Thursday morning in March. I was having coffee in my kitchen in my house, when Brittany came storming in with a stack of papers in her hands. "Dorothy, we need to talk," she said, slapping the papers down on the table. I looked at them and felt my blood turn to ice. They were nursing home brochures and house listing websites printed out, showing what similar homes in my neighborhood were selling for. "What is this?" I asked, even though I already knew. Brittany sat down across from me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Marcus and I have been talking, and we think it's time to make some changes. You're getting older, and this house is way too big for you to manage alone. We found some really nice assisted living places that would be perfect for someone your age." "And what about my house?" I asked quietly. "Well, Marcus and I would take over the mortgage payments, of course. And since we've been living here and taking care of the place for over a year now, we thought it would make sense for you to sign the house over to us. That way you don't have to worry about property taxes or maintenance or any of that stressful stuff." I stared at her. This woman, who had been living in my house rent-free for over a year, eating my food, using my utilities, treating me like a guest in my own home, wanted me to just sign my house over to her and move into a nursing home. "And if I say no?" I asked. Her fake smile disappeared. "Dorothy, let's be realistic here. You're almost 70 years old. You can barely manage the stairs anymore. Marcus is worried sick about you living alone in this big house. What if you fall? What if you have a medical emergency? We're just looking out for your best interests." "My best interests," I repeated. "Yes, and honestly, it would be better for everyone. Marcus and I need our privacy to build our marriage, and the kids need stability. Having you here, well, it's just not working anymore." I looked at this woman who had never paid a dime in rent, never contributed to groceries, never helped with a single household expense, and I felt something inside me snap. "Get out," I said quietly. "Excuse me. Get out of my kitchen. Get out of my house. All of you." Brittany's eyes went wide, and then she started to laugh. Actually laugh. "Oh, Dorothy, you can't be serious. Where exactly do you think we're supposed to go? Marcus and I are married now. We're a family. You can't just kick us out because you're having a temper tantrum." "Watch me," I said, standing up. "This is my house. My name is on the deed, and I want you out." That's when Brittany's mask finally came off completely. "Fine," she screamed, jumping up so fast her chair fell over. "Fine. You want to be a bitter old woman? You want to choose your precious house over your own son's happiness? Then you know what, Dorothy? We don't have space here for you anymore either. You old parasite, leave." She grabbed those nursing home brochures and threw them at me. The papers scattered everywhere, floating down like the most insulting confetti in the world. "Marcus!" she yelled. "Marcus, get down here!" My son came running down the stairs, still in his scrubs from his night shift. "What's going on? What's all the yelling about?" "Your mother just kicked us out," Brittany said, and I watched in amazement as her eyes filled with crocodile tears. "She said she doesn't want us here anymore. After everything we've done for her, after all the times I've taken care of her when she was sick, she just told us to get out." Marcus looked at me with such disappointment that it felt like a knife in my chest. "Mom, is this true?" I looked at my son. This man I had raised to be better than this, and I realized that somewhere along the way I had lost him to this woman's lies. "Yes," I said simply. "It's true. I asked her to leave." "But why? What happened?" I could have told him about the nursing home brochures. I could have explained how his wife had just tried to manipulate me into signing over my house. I could have laid out every cruel thing she had said and done over the past year. But looking at his face, I knew it wouldn't matter. He had already chosen his side. "It doesn't matter why," I said. "This is my house, and I want you to leave." The next few hours were a blur of packing and yelling, and Marcus trying to mediate between us. But there was no middle ground here. Brittany had shown her true colors, and there was no going back. By evening, they were gone. All of them, Brittany, the kids, and my son, who wouldn't even look at me as he loaded the last box into his car. The house felt so empty after they left. Empty and quiet and sad. I sat in my kitchen, looking at those nursing home brochures still scattered on the floor, and I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. Maybe Brittany was right. Maybe I was too old to live alone in such a big house. Maybe I was just a bitter old woman who couldn't accept that her son had grown up and moved on. But then I remembered the way she had looked at me when she threw those papers, the contempt in her eyes, the way she called me a parasite in my own home. No, I had done the right thing. I just needed some time to figure out what came next. That's when I decided to go to my beach house. Robert and I had bought a little place in Malibu about 20 years ago as a vacation rental property. After he passed away, I couldn't bear to sell it. Too many happy memories. So I just kept it as a retreat for when I needed to get away from everything. I packed a small suitcase, got in my car, and drove out to the coast. I needed time to think, to process what had happened, to figure out how to rebuild the relationship with my son. The 3-hour drive to Malibu gave me plenty of time to replay the whole awful scene in my head. Maybe I should call Marcus and apologize. Maybe I should try to work things out with Brittany for his sake. Maybe I should just accept that this was how families worked nowadays and try to find a way to coexist. By the time I pulled into the driveway of my beach house, I had almost convinced myself to call Marcus and ask him to come back home. But then I saw the cars in my driveway, 3 cars that I didn't recognize, parked like they owned the place. I sat in my car for a moment, confused. Had I rented the house out and forgotten about it? Had my property manager double-booked it? Then I heard the laughter coming from the back deck. Loud, familiar laughter that made my blood run cold. I got out of my car and walked around to the back of the house, my heart pounding. And there they were. Brittany was lounging in my favorite deck chair, a margarita in her hand, directing her mother and sister as they set up what looked like a full-scale family reunion. Tyler and Madison were in my pool, splashing and screaming. Her brother was grilling on my expensive outdoor barbecue setup, and her father was going through my wine collection like he was shopping at a liquor store. They had broken into my beach house, my private retreat, my sanctuary, and they were having a party. I stood there for a moment, watching them enjoy themselves on my property, and I felt a rage so pure and clean that it almost knocked me over. That's when Brittany noticed me, standing there with my suitcase. She looked at me for a long moment, and then she started to laugh, that same awful laugh from earlier. "Oh my God," she called out to her family. "Look who decided to show up." Everyone turned to stare at me. Brittany's mother, Linda, who had always been cold to me. Her sister, Ashley, who had never worked a day in her life. Her brother, Derek, who had been in and out of jail for petty theft. Her father, Chuck, who drank too much and told inappropriate jokes at family gatherings. "What is this old parasite doing here?" Brittany said, loud enough for all of them to hear. "We have no place for you." The whole family erupted in laughter, like it was the funniest joke they had ever heard. I stood there, holding my suitcase, looking at these people who had invaded my private sanctuary, and I just smiled. Because what Brittany didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I had spent the entire drive to Malibu making phone calls. Phone calls to my lawyer, phone calls to my property manager, phone calls to some very important people who had been waiting years for me to make a decision about something. Something that was about to change all of our lives forever. "That's okay, Brittany," I said sweetly. "I'll just be going now." And as I walked back to my car, listening to their laughter behind me, I pulled out my phone and made one more call. The most important call of all. "Hello, Mr. Peterson. This is Dorothy Washington. Yes, I've made my decision about the development deal. When can we meet?" The next morning, I woke up in a hotel room in Santa Monica with a feeling I hadn't experienced in months. Pure, crystal clear purpose. After making that phone call to Mr. Peterson, I had driven straight to the Marriott and checked in for the night. I needed time to think, to plan, and most importantly, to let Brittany and her family enjoy their little beach house party for just one more day. Because what they didn't know was that their fun was about to come to a very expensive end. You see, that beach house in Malibu wasn't just some little vacation property like I had let everyone believe. Robert and I had bought it in 2003 for $400,000, which seemed like a lot of money at the time. But we had chosen that particular spot very carefully. It sat on a prime piece of oceanfront real estate, right in the path of what city planners knew would eventually become the most valuable stretch of coast in all of Southern California. Over the years, I had been contacted dozens of times by developers wanting to buy my property. The offers kept getting bigger and bigger as the area became more and more desirable. Last year, the offers had reached over $2 million. But I had always said no, because that little house held so many precious memories of Robert and me. Until yesterday. Yesterday, when I saw Brittany and her family treating my sanctuary like their personal playground, something inside me shifted. Those memories were still precious, but they were inside me now, not in that house. And sometimes you have to let go of the past to protect your future. Mr. Bao Peterson represented a luxury resort development company that had been trying to buy my property for 3 years. Their latest offer was $2.3 million, plus a percentage of future profits from the resort they wanted to build. It was more money than I could spend in 2 lifetimes. But more importantly, it would solve a problem I didn't even know I had until yesterday. I spent the morning meeting with Mr. Peterson and his team of lawyers. The paperwork was already mostly prepared. They had been hoping I would change my mind for so long that they had everything ready to go. All I had to do was sign, and the sale would be complete within 48 hours. "Mrs. Washington," Mr. Peterson said as we finished signing the documents, "I have to ask, what changed your mind? You've been so firm about keeping the property in the family." I thought about Brittany calling me a parasite. I thought about her throwing nursing home brochures at me. I thought about the way she and her family had laughed at me in my own backyard. Let's just say I realized that some people don't deserve to inherit beautiful things, I said. By noon, I was the owner of a cashier's check for $2.3 million. But I wasn't done yet, not by a long shot. My next stop was to see my lawyer, Janet Rodriguez, who had been handling my legal affairs since Robert passed away. Janet was a sharp woman in her 50s who didn't mess around when it came to protecting her clients. "Dorothy," she said when I walked into her office, "you look different. What's going on?" I told her everything. The whole story about Brittany, the nursing home brochures, the beach house invasion, everything. When I finished, Janet was quiet for a long moment. "Dorothy," she said finally, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you doing this because you're angry, or are you doing this because it's the right thing to do?" I thought about that question, really thought about it. "Both," I said. "I'm angry, yes, but I'm also protecting myself. This woman tried to manipulate me into signing over my home. She's been emotionally abusing me for over a year, and now she's broken into my private property. If I don't stand up for myself now, what's to stop her from trying this again?" Janet nodded slowly. "Okay, then let's talk about your options." We spent the next 2 hours going over my legal rights. The beach house situation was actually pretty straightforward. Brittany and her family had broken into private property without permission. That was trespassing at minimum, possibly breaking and entering depending on how they had gotten in. But there were other things we could do too. "The main house situation is more complicated," Janet explained. "Since Marcus is your son, and they were living there with your permission, you can't just have them arrested for trespassing. But you absolutely have the right to evict them with proper notice." "How much notice?" I asked. "In California, for family members, it's typically 30 days. 30 days, that seemed like forever. But Janet continued, "There are exceptions. If they're damaging the property, threatening you, or engaging in illegal activities, you can move much faster." I thought about Brittany throwing those papers at me, screaming at me in my own kitchen, calling me names. "What about emotional abuse?" I asked. "Harder to prove, but not impossible. Do you have any witnesses? Any documentation?" That's when I remembered something. "Janet, I have security cameras. Robert installed them a few years before he died, because we had some break-ins in the neighborhood. They record everything that happens in the main living areas." Janet's eyes lit up. "Dorothy, please tell me you still have those recordings." "Everything gets saved to a cloud server automatically. I should have months' worth of footage." "We need to review that footage immediately. If we can document a pattern of abuse or harassment, we might be able to get an emergency restraining order. And if Brittany violated that order by going to your beach house..." I was starting to understand where this was going. We spent the rest of the afternoon reviewing security footage from my home cameras. It was horrible, watching months of Brittany's behavior played back in fast forward. Her eye rolls, her dismissive gestures, the way she would mock me when she thought no one was looking. There was footage of her throwing away my mail, rearranging my furniture, and even one particularly awful scene where she was on the phone with someone, laughing about how she was going to get the old bat into a nursing home and take over her house. But the worst part was watching Marcus, seeing how he would come home tired from saving lives at the hospital, only to have Brittany immediately start complaining about something I had supposedly done. Watching him get more and more worn down as she poisoned him against me, bit by bit. "Dorothy," Janet said when we finished, "this is more than enough for a restraining order. This woman has been systematically abusing you in your own home. No judge is going to let this continue. How fast can we move?" I can file for an emergency order tomorrow morning. If the judge agrees, Brittany will have to stay at least 100 yards away from you and your properties. That includes the main house and the beach house. And if she's already at the beach house when the order goes through? Janet smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. Then she'll be violating a court order. That's contempt of court at minimum, possibly criminal depending on the circumstances. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. There's one more thing, Janet said. Your son. Have you thought about how this is going to affect your relationship with Marcus? That was the question I had been dreading. I don't know, I said honestly. I hope that once he sees who Brittany really is, he'll understand why I had to do this. But if he doesn't, Dorothy, you can't set yourself on fire to keep other people warm, even if one of those people is your son. That evening, I drove back to my main house. I needed to pack some clothes and personal items, and I wanted to check on the property. I also wanted to see if Marcus and Brittany had come back after their beach house adventure. The house was empty when I arrived, but I could tell they had been there. The kitchen was a mess. There were wet towels all over the bathroom floor, and someone had eaten all the food I had left in the refrigerator. It felt like coming home after being robbed. I was packing a suitcase in my bedroom when I heard a car in the driveway. Then another car, then voices, loud, drunk voices. I looked out my bedroom window and felt my heart sink. It wasn't just Marcus and Brittany. It was Brittany's entire family, plus some people I didn't recognize. They were getting out of their cars with coolers and grocery bags, clearly planning to continue their party at my main house. I watched Brittany stumble toward my front door, her sister Ashley right behind her. They were both obviously drunk from their day at the beach house. This place is so much better than that tiny beach shack, I heard Ashley say, as they fumbled with the keys. I know, right? Brittany replied. And the best part is, the old bag isn't here to bother us. I bet she's crying in some hotel room right now. They both started laughing as they opened my front door. I finished packing quickly and quietly. I didn't want a confrontation, not tonight. Tomorrow, after Janet filed the restraining order, would be soon enough. But as I was getting ready to leave through the back door, I heard something that made me freeze. Derek, help me move this stuff up to the master bedroom, Brittany was saying. Marcus and I are going to start sleeping in there. It's got the best view, and the bathroom is huge. The master bedroom, my bedroom, the bedroom I had shared with Robert for 30 years. I crept to the top of the stairs and looked down. Brittany and her brother Derek were carrying my personal belongings out of the master bedroom, my photo albums, my jewelry box, Robert's old clothes that I hadn't been able to give away yet. Just put it all in that spare room down the hall, Brittany was saying. We'll deal with it later. They were moving me out of my own bedroom, in my own house. I watched them carry box after box of my most precious possessions, treating them like they were garbage to be stored away. When Derek picked up my wedding album, he actually flipped through it and laughed. Look at these old pictures, he called out to Ashley. Fashion was so weird back then. That wedding album contained the only pictures I had of Robert and me on our wedding day. The only record of the happiest day of my life. And this man, this criminal who had been in and out of jail, who was only in my house because I had been kind enough to welcome him, was laughing at it. I made a decision right then that changed everything. Instead of sneaking out the back door, I walked down those stairs and into my own living room where Brittany's entire family was setting up for another party. "Excuse me," I said quietly. Everyone stopped what they were doing and turned to look at me. The room went completely silent. "This is my house," I said, looking directly at Brittany. "I want all of you to leave, now." Brittany looked at me for a moment, and then she started to laugh. That same awful laugh that had echoed through my beach house just 24 hours earlier. "Oh, Dorothy," she said, shaking her head. "You just don't get it, do you? This isn't your house anymore. Marcus is my husband, which makes me family, and family doesn't kick family out on the street." "Where is Marcus?" I asked. "He's working a double shift to pay for all this," she said, gesturing around the room. "Someone has to be responsible around here. My son was working himself to death to pay for his wife's party lifestyle, and she was bragging about it." "I want all of you out of my house," I said again, louder this time. "Or what?" Derek said, standing up from where he had been going through my wedding album. "You'll call the cops? Lady, we're not doing anything illegal. We're family." "You're not my family," I said, looking right at him. "You're a criminal who broke into my beach house today, and now you're in my main house without permission, going through my personal belongings." Derek's face got red. "Who are you calling a criminal, old woman?" "Derek, calm down," Brittany said, but she was smiling. She was enjoying this. "No, I'm serious," Derek continued, taking a step toward me. "I've had enough of this bitter old lady acting like she's better than us. Maybe it's time someone taught her some respect." That's when I pulled out my phone. "You're absolutely right," I said calmly. "It is time someone learned some respect." I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency?" "This is Dorothy Washington at 1247 Maple Street. I have multiple people in my home who are refusing to leave, and one of them just threatened me. I need police assistance immediately." The room exploded. Brittany started screaming that I was crazy, that they were family, that I couldn't call the cops on family. Derek was yelling about how I was a vindictive old witch who was trying to destroy everyone's happiness. Ashley and Linda were grabbing their purses and heading for the door. But Chuck, Brittany's father, surprised me. "Brittany," he said quietly, "maybe we should go." "Dad, no, she can't do this to us." "Baby girl, this isn't our house. If she wants us to leave, we should leave." "But Marcus said we could stay here." "Marcus isn't here," Chuck said thumb. "And it's not his house either." For a moment, I thought maybe one person in this family had some sense. But then Brittany played her final card. "Fight!" she screamed at me. "Fine that you want to destroy your son's marriage. You want to choose your stupid house over his happiness. Then you know what, Dorothy? You just lost your son forever. Marcus will never forgive you for this. Never." She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. But then she stopped and turned back to me. "You know what the really sad part is?" she said, her voice dripping with fake sympathy. "You're going to die alone in this big empty house, and when you do, no one is going to care. No one is going to miss you. Because you chose to be a bitter, selfish old woman instead of a loving mother." Then she walked out, slamming the door so hard that one of my picture frames fell off the wall and shattered. The police arrived 15 minutes later to find me sitting alone in my living room, surrounded by the mess Brittany's family had left behind. I gave them a full report, the trespassing at the beach house, the threats from Derek, everything. But even as I was talking to the officers, all I could think about was what Brittany had said. Maybe she was right. Maybe I was going to lose my son forever. Maybe I was choosing my house over his happiness. But as I looked around at the chaos they had left behind, my wedding album on the floor, my personal belongings scattered everywhere, my home treated like a garbage dump, I knew I had made the right choice. Some battles you fight because you want to win. Others you fight because you have to, because if you don't fight them, you'll lose something even more important than the battle itself. You'll lose yourself. The next morning, Janet called me with news that changed everything. "Dorothy, we got the restraining order. Judge Martinez reviewed the security footage and granted an emergency protective order effective immediately. Brittany has to stay at least 100 yards away from you and both of your properties." "Both properties?" I asked. "Yes, the main house and the beach house. If she's still there." "She is," I said. "I drove by this morning. Her car is still in the driveway." "Then she's in violation of a court order. I'm calling the sheriff's department now." 20 minutes later, my phone rang. It was a number I didn't recognize. "Hello? Dorothy, what the hell did you do?" It was Marcus, and he sounded furious. "Marcus, where are you?" "I'm at the hospital. Brittany just called me crying, saying the police showed up at the beach house and arrested her entire family for trespassing. She said you had them all thrown in jail." "Marcus, I need you to listen to me very carefully. Your wife broke into my beach house without permission. That's illegal. She also threatened me in my own home last night, in front of witnesses." "That's not what she told me." "I'm sure it isn't. Marcus, I have security camera footage of everything that's been happening in my house for the past year. Your wife has been abusing me, trying to manipulate me into signing over my property. And last night, she told me I was going to die alone and that no one would miss me." There was silence on the other end of the line. "Marcus, are you there?" "Mom," he said finally, and his voice was different now, quieter. "What security cameras?" "Your father installed them before he died. They record everything that happens in the main living areas." "Everything, Marcus." Another long silence. "I want to see the footage," he said. "Okay. Can you come to Janet Rodriguez's office this afternoon? She has copies of everything." "I'll be there at 3. He hung up without saying goodbye. I spent the rest of the day wondering if I had just saved my relationship with my son, or destroyed it completely. At 2:45 p.m., I sat in Janet's office, waiting for my son to arrive. My hands were shaking, and I couldn't tell if it was from nerves or from the 3 cups of coffee I'd had that morning. Janet had prepared a folder with printed screenshots from the security footage, plus a tablet loaded with the actual video clips. "Dorothy," she said gently, "are you sure you want to show him everything? Some of this footage is pretty harsh. It might be easier for your relationship if you just showed him the highlights." I thought about that. There were hours of footage showing Brittany mocking me, dismissing me, treating me like I was invisible in my own home. There were clips of her on the phone with friends, laughing about how she was going to get rid of the old woman and take over my house. There was even footage of her going through my personal mail and throwing away letters from my doctor. "No," I said finally, "he needs to see it all. If our relationship is going to survive this, it has to be built on truth, not on me protecting his feelings. Marcus arrived at exactly 3:00 p.m. He looked terrible, exhausted, stressed, like he hadn't slept in days. He was still wearing his hospital scrubs, which meant he had come straight from work. "Mom," he said when he walked in. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't hostile either, just tired. "Marcus," I replied, "thank you for coming." Janet gestured for us to sit down at her conference table. "Marcus, your mother has asked me to show you security footage from her home, covering the past several months. I want you to know that this isn't easy for any of us, but she felt it was important for you to understand what's been happening." Marcus looked at me. "Mom, before we start, I need you to know that Brittany is devastated. She's been crying for hours. She says you're trying to destroy our marriage because you don't like her." My heart sank. Even now, even after everything, he was starting with Brittany's version of events. "Marcus," I said carefully, "I want you to watch this footage with an open mind. Don't think about what Brittany told you or what I'm telling you now. Just watch and make your own judgment about what you see." Janet started with some of the milder clips first. Footage of Brittany rolling her eyes when I asked simple questions. Video of her rearranging my furniture without asking, then getting annoyed when I couldn't find things. Clips of her throwing away my mail and personal belongings. Marcus watched in silence, his expression unreadable. "This is from last month," Janet said, starting a new clip. "Your mother was recovering from a minor procedure and asked Brittany for help with some household tasks. On the screen, I watched myself asking Brittany if she could help with grocery shopping since my arthritis was acting up. What Marcus saw was his wife's response. 'I'm not your maid, Dorothy. Maybe it's time you thought about one of those senior living places where people can actually take care of you properly.' I watched my son's face as he heard his wife suggest putting me in a nursing home because I had asked for help with groceries. "There's more," Janet said quietly. The next clip was from 2 weeks ago. Brittany was on the phone with someone, probably her sister Ashley, walking around my kitchen like she owned it. "Oh, girl, you should see this place," she was saying to whoever was on the other end. "It's going to be perfect once I get rid of all her old lady crap. I'm thinking we'll redo the whole kitchen, maybe knock out that wall to open up the space." "What?" "Oh, she'll be in some nursing home by then. I'm working on Marcus." He's starting to come around to the idea. "No, she won't be a problem. Trust me, I know how to handle stubborn old women." I watched the color drain from my son's face. "Marcus," I said softly, "there's more, but if you don't want to see it, show me everything," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. The next hour was brutal. We watched footage of Brittany hosting parties in my house without asking, using my expensive dishes and leaving them broken. We saw her going through my bedroom, trying on my jewelry and laughing about how old-fashioned everything was. There was video of her bringing strange men over when Marcus was at work, men I had never seen before, who went through my things while she wasn't looking. But the worst clip came from just a week ago. I was in the kitchen, trying to make dinner for everyone, moving slowly because my arthritis was particularly bad that day. Brittany came in and started complaining that dinner wasn't ready yet. "Marcus works double shifts to keep this family afloat," she said on the video. "And you can't even have dinner ready when he gets home? What exactly do you do all day?" Dorothy. On screen, I watched myself try to explain that I had been at a doctor's appointment and had started dinner as soon as I got home. Doctor's appointments, Brittany said dismissively. You know what I think? I think you make up these appointments because you like the attention. You like making everyone worry about you and fuss over you. It's pathetic. I had forgotten about that conversation until I saw it on video. But watching it now, seeing the way Brittany had torn me down for being sick, for needing medical care, I felt that same sharp pain I had felt that day. Marcus was staring at the screen like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. Mom, he said, why didn't you tell me she was saying these things to you? I tried, I said quietly. Remember when I came to you about setting some boundaries? You said I should be more flexible. He put his head in his hands. Oh God, I remember that conversation. She told me you were being difficult about helping around the house, that you were making her feel unwelcome. There's one more clip, Janet said gently. This is from the day you all moved out. This was the footage I had been dreading. The clip that showed Brittany throwing the nursing home brochures at me, screaming that I was a parasite, demanding that I leave my own home. But what Marcus saw was something I had forgotten about. After Brittany stormed out of the kitchen, she had gone upstairs to pack. The cameras in the hallway caught her coming back down with a box of my things, photo albums, jewelry, personal papers. What is she doing? Marcus asked. We watched Brittany carry the box out to her car. Then she came back for another box and another. She was stealing from me, I said, realizing it for the first time. Marcus, she took my personal belongings when you moved out. Janet paused the video. Dorothy, do you want to press charges for theft as well? Before I could answer, Marcus stood up so fast his chair fell over. I need some air, he said, and walked out of the office. I started to follow him, but Janet stopped me. Let him process this, she said. This is a lot to take in. We waited for 20 minutes before Marcus came back. When he did, his eyes were red and his face was pale. Mom, he said, sitting back down, I am so sorry. I had no idea. I thought you were just having trouble adjusting to sharing your space. I thought maybe you were being a little possessive of your house because you missed Dad. Marcus, no, let me finish. I failed you. I'm your son, and I was supposed to protect you, and instead I let my wife abuse you in your own home for over a year. You didn't know, I said, but I should have known. I should have paid attention. I should have listened to you instead of just believing whatever Brittany told me. He looked at the tablet screen, which was still paused on the image of his wife stealing my belongings. Mom, what she did to you, what I let her do to you. It's unforgivable. It's not unforgivable, I said. You were manipulated too, Marcus. That woman is very good at making people see what she wants them to see. Where is she now? He asked. She and her family spent the night in jail for trespassing on my beach house. They should be getting out this morning. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he asked, Mom, what beach house? I realized that in all the chaos, I had never explained about selling the Malibu property. The beach house your father and I bought years ago. I sold it yesterday for $2.3 million. Marcus's eyes went wide. You sold it? But Mom, you loved that place. I did love it. But after I saw Brittany and her family treating it like their personal playground, I realized it was just a house. The memories I have of your father aren't in that building. They're in here, I said, pointing to my heart. $2.3 million, Marcus repeated softly. Mom, you're rich. I laughed despite everything. I suppose I am. I was going to use the money to travel, maybe see some of the places your father and I always talked about visiting. But now, well, now I might need it for legal fees. What do you mean? Janet spoke up. Marcus, your wife violated a restraining order by being on your mother's property. That's a serious crime. But there's also the matter of the stolen property, the emotional abuse, and potentially fraud if she was trying to manipulate your mother into signing over the house. Marcus looked sick. What's going to happen to her? That depends on your mother, Janet said. She can press charges for all of it, or she can be more selective about which crimes to prosecute. All eyes turned to me. The decision that could send my daughter-in-law to prison was mine to make. I don't know, I said honestly. I need to think about it. Mom, Marcus said, whatever you decide, I'll support you. But I need you to know that my marriage to Brittany is over. I can't be with someone who would treat you like this. I can't be with someone who would steal from you, lie to me, and try to manipulate you out of your home. I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't even realized was there. Are you sure? Marcus, I don't want to be the reason your marriage ends. You're not the reason, he said firmly. She is. Her choices, her actions, her lies. That's what ended this marriage. All you did was finally stand up for yourself, which you should have done months ago. We talked for another hour about practical things. Marcus was going to file for divorce immediately. He would move back in with me temporarily while he looked for his own place, but only if I was comfortable with that arrangement. He was going to therapy to work through how he had been manipulated and to make sure he never let something like this happen again. But the big question remained: what to do about Brittany? That evening, I was sitting in my kitchen, finally peaceful again, when the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Brittany standing on my front porch. She was alone and she looked terrible. Her hair was messy, her clothes were wrinkled like she had slept in them, and her eyes were red from crying. I thought about not answering. The restraining order meant she wasn't supposed to be within 100 yards of my house. But something made me open the door. "Dorothy," she said, and her voice was completely different from how I'd ever heard it before. Small, defeated. "Please, I just need 5 minutes. I know I'm not supposed to be here, but I need to talk to you." "Brittany, you're violating a court order just by being here." I know, and I'm sorry. About everything. About all of it." She started crying again. "Marcus left me. He took the kids to his friend's house and told me he's filing for divorce. He said he saw security footage of things I said and did." I stood in my doorway looking at this woman who had made my life hell for over a year, who had tried to steal my home, who had called me a parasite in my own house. And for the first time, she looked like what she really was: a frightened, desperate person who had just lost everything. "Please," she continued, "I know I messed up. I know I said terrible things and did terrible things, but I was scared. I was scared that Marcus would choose you over me, and I thought if I could just get you to leave, then he would be all mine." So you tried to manipulate me into signing over my house? She looked down at her feet. Yes, I found those papers online, and I thought maybe, if you felt like you were too old to live alone, you would just give up. And when that didn't work, you broke into my beach house. I was drunk. I was angry. My whole family was telling me I should just take what I wanted, because you were going to die soon anyway, and leave it all to Marcus. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. But they were wrong, and I was wrong, and I've ruined everything. I stood there listening to her apology, and I felt something I hadn't expected. Pity. This woman had been so insecure, so afraid of losing my son, that she had convinced herself that destroying me was the only way to save her marriage. Brittany, I said quietly, what you did to me was cruel. You made me feel unwelcome in my own home. You tried to steal my belongings. You called me names and treated me like I was worthless. I know, she whispered, but I think you were as much a victim of your fear as I was a victim of your actions. She looked up at me, confused. I'm not going to press charges, I said. Her eyes went wide. What? I'm not going to press charges for the theft, or the trespassing, or any of it. But I have conditions. Anything. I'll do anything. First, you stay away from me. The restraining order stays in place. You don't contact me. You don't come to my house. You don't try to communicate with me through Marcus or anyone else. Okay. Second, you get help, real help. Therapy, counseling, whatever you need to figure out why you thought treating me like that was acceptable. I will. And third, you let Marcus go. You don't fight him on the divorce. You don't try to turn the kids against him, and you don't try to get back together with him. You let him move on with his life. She was crying harder now, but she nodded. I understand. Brittany, I hope you find whatever it is you're looking for. I hope you learn to be happy without tearing other people down, but I never want to see you again. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not pressing charges. Thank you for giving me a chance to start over. She turned to leave, then stopped and looked back at me. Dorothy, I really am sorry for all of it. I know you are, I said. Goodbye, Brittany. I watched her walk to her car and drive away. Then I closed my door and locked it, feeling like I was closing the door on the worst chapter of my life. 6 months later, I was sitting on the deck of a beautiful villa in Tuscany, watching the sunset over the Italian countryside. Marcus had given me a journal for my birthday, and I was writing about my adventures, the cooking classes in Rome, the art museums in Florence, the wonderful people I had met along the way. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Marcus. Hope you're having an amazing time in Italy, Mom. Can't wait to hear all about it when you get home. The new apartment is great, and I'm feeling more like myself every day. Thank you for showing me what real strength looks like. Love you. I smiled and put my phone away. Then I picked up my journal and continued writing. Today I learned something important. Sometimes the people who hurt us the most are the people who are hurting the most themselves. That doesn't excuse their behavior, and it doesn't mean we have to accept abuse. But it means we can choose how we respond to that hurt. I chose forgiveness, but I also chose boundaries. I chose kindness, but I also chose self-protection. And most importantly, I chose to believe that I deserved better, even when the people closest to me were telling me I didn't. The beach house is gone now, but I used that money to see the world. The memories of Robert aren't in that building anymore. They're with me wherever I go. And I've learned that home isn't a place you can inherit or steal or manipulate someone into giving you. Home is what you build with love, respect, and kindness. I'm 67 years old, and I'm not a parasite. I'm not a burden. I'm not too old to live my own life in my own house. I'm a woman who stood up for herself, and in doing so, I saved not just my own life, but my son's life too. And you know what? That feels pretty good. I closed the journal and looked out at the beautiful Italian sunset. Tomorrow I would explore a new town, try new food, and meet new people. The world was full of possibilities, and for the first time in years, I felt free to explore all of them. My phone rang. It was Marcus. "Hi, honey," I said. "Mom, I just wanted to call and tell you something. I ran into Brittany today at the grocery store." My heart clenched. "Oh, how did that go?" "Actually, really well. She looks different, healthier. She said she's been in therapy and is working on herself. She asked me to tell you that she's kept all of your conditions. She's staying away from you, she's getting help, and she signed the divorce papers without any problems. That's good to hear. But Mom, the reason I'm calling is because she said something else. She said to tell you thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For showing her what real consequences look like. She said that for her whole life, she had been able to manipulate her way out of trouble. But when you stood up to her, it was the first time she realized she needed to change." I thought about that. "How do you feel about that?" "I feel grateful," Marcus said. "Grateful that you were strong enough to stand up for yourself when I wasn't strong enough to stand up for you. And grateful that maybe, in the end, we helped her become a better person too." "I love you, Marcus." "I love you too, Mom. Enjoy Italy. You've earned it." After we hung up, I sat on that deck for a long time, thinking about everything that had happened. About how sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to be treated badly. About how standing up for yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you an example for others. And about how it's never too late to start living your life on your own terms. The sun set over the Italian hills, painting the sky as shades of gold and pink. And for the first time in years, I felt completely at peace. Thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and feel free to share your story in the comments. Your voice matters.